So let's try and define each of the large randomized phase 3 trials that we discussed. We'll begin with Dr. Fonseca.
Well, thank you. The Endeavor clinical trial was a very large randomized phase 3 trial, 929 patients that tested in a one-to-one randomization, carfilzomib plus dexamethasone versus bortezomib plus dexamethasone, with the primary endpoint being progression-free survival. Likewise, the Aspire clinical trial tested the three-drug combination of carfilzomib, lenalidomide, and dexamethasone versus lenalidomide dexamethasone alone in a one-to-one randomization for previously treated patients with multiple myeloma.
The Eloquent 2 trial was a randomized phase 3 trial of over 600 patients, randomizing patients to either receive elotuzumab plus lenalidomide and dexamethasone versus lenalidomide and dexamethasone in a relapsed or relapsed and refractory myeloma patient population with 1 to 3 prior lines of therapy. Dr. Landau?
The first trial was done in newly diagnosed transplant-ineligible patients, and over 1,600 patients were randomized in a one-to-one-to-one fashion to continuous lenalidomide and dexamethasone, lenalidomide and dexamethasone for a fixed duration of 18 cycles, or melphalan, prednisone, and thalidomide for a total of 12 cycles.
The Panorama Trial was a randomized phase 3 study of relapsed and relapsed refractory multiple myeloma. Over 700 patients were randomized to 2 arms, one panobinostat bortezomib dexamethasone, the other placebo bortezomib dexamethasone, with the bortezomib given days 1, 4, 8, 11 intravenously.
The Champion study was actually a phase 1-2 study of weekly carfilzomib and dexamethasone given in relapsed refractory myeloma with 1 to 3 lines of prior therapy.
The Cirrus trial is a phase 2 trial of daratumumab, initially exploring either 8 or 16 mg per kg of daratumumab in refractory myeloma. There was then a large phase 2 expansion using 16 mg per kg only as the subsequent dose. Well, this has been a terrific discussion. We've reviewed a lot of important information about emerging concepts in the treatment of multiple myeloma. Before we end this discussion, I'd like to get final thoughts from each of our panelists about the ever-evolving field of myeloma that we work in. Dr. Gertz?
Well, I think it's a little early to declare victory. 90% of myeloma patients still die of myeloma, so there's still an unmet need. And so advancing our understanding of appropriate combinations in the development of new drug classes is still an imperative for the myeloma community.
Okay. Dr. Landau?
I agree entirely. I don't think that we can say we cure patients, unfortunately, at this juncture. I think that we do convert some patients into more of a chronic illness, but ultimately patients die of their disease. So not only are we're at a point where we're developing novel drugs and novel targets, but also learning the biology of the disease and understanding the genetics and the clonal heterogeneity that each individual patient, and within an individual having this heterogeneity, we have to focus more not only on the drug targets, but also understanding the biology. And I think that we're in an era where we're actually doing that.
Mm-hmm. Great. Dr. Fonseca?
I actually agree with everything that's been said. Unlike Heather, I do think a small proportion, but we do cure some patients. But we're not there yet. As Morie was speaking, that was going to be my final comment. We can't really claim victory. We've seen tremendous progress. Myeloma is a great example where the progress is sometimes incremental. It doesn't have to be a drastic change. It doesn't have to be a completely new mechanism of action. Just look at the IMiDs. We go from thalidomide, that's very neurotoxic, lenalidomide, much better, less neurotoxic. Pomalidomide, it's a third in class that's active in patients that we just extensively discussed. We look at 3 proteasome inhibitors. So just the incremental and the accretion gains that we have because of the availability of these new agents that really have improved the lives of our patients. But still, all in all, myeloma will be a fatal disorder for most patients who are diagnosed with that in 2015. But I do think we're in the brink of making even more changes and more improvements in the survival of patients. So I think we can't give up, and we need to kind of live with that optimism that things will be better as more of these trials are presented.
Okay. Dr. Shah?
You know, so I think that it's exciting because we're having lots of new drugs coming in for our patients to benefit from. And so the question comes up, how do you sequence these patients and how do you use these drugs and the challenges with that. But I'd like to flip that on the other side. And I think this is a real opportunity and focus on the positive. The fact that our patients are able to have all these extra drugs and live longer, I think is a unique opportunity for us to understand how to do that. And at the end of the day, we're not going to come up with, you know, an R-CHOP plus as this is the standard of care that we're going to give for every single patient. And so I think we have to get beyond asking that question, saying what is the standard of care or what is the exact cookbook recipe. And in fact, I think in myeloma, because we can retreat patients, this is a very different disease than other tumor types where we can retreat and we can reuse our therapies. So I mean, I think we just have to embrace the fact that one size is not going to fit all. There's not going to be one standard of care. And that we should embrace this, that this is going to be the art of medicine and how we practice medicine and not just have a cookbook recipe. So I think this is an exciting time for myeloma and should embrace it.
Yeah, and I'm going to take moderator's prerogative here, and with admittedly some level of bias, I think you know, seeing randomized phase 3 data in the context of relapsed myeloma with elotuzumab showing improvements sort of across the board in PFS, overcoming potentially high-risk disease in certain subsets as well, and then the availability of something like daratumumab in the refractory myeloma setting, these are, to me, game changers. And I think, you know, we all have patients that walk in or drive in or fly in from wherever that are looking for hope, and I think these approaches provide hope, and that's really important, I think.
Agreed.
All right, thanks to all of you for your contributions to this highly informative and educational discussion. On behalf of our panel, we thank you for joining us, and we hope you found this peer exchange discussion to be useful and informative. Thanks for your time.